Greetings, Sega fans, the world over. It's the Sega guys, back again for a special bonus episode. I'm Dan, the Mega Driver, and I'm joined as always by my good friend, my Sega brother from another mother. It's James the Segaholic. How you doing, mate?
I'm smashing, mate. How's yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. I'm really excited to do this one, given that it's something that we haven't done before. But I think the
No.
subject warranted it somewhat. How about
Yes.
yourself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously we've done our 10 things we love about the Mega Drive Mini, which was part of the Radio Sega event. But I think now that we've both officially had our hands on it, we can now do an impromptu verdict show, which is exactly what we're doing today. So, aye, that's it, mate.
That's it. I mean, if anyone's just been watching us on YouTube and don't follow us on Twitter, they may be wondering, well, didn't we leave it at a point in the last episode where, James, you ordered one? Dan, were you going to order one? But yours was a bit of a journey, wasn't it, mate? Because you had a slight change of plans halfway through.
Aye, basically, long story short, to try and kind of spread the cost a wee bit, I paid a slight premium on eBay, and I thought it was getting delivered. I paid this eBay seller who I thought was just going to order it on their eBay, on their Amazon, change the shipping address to mine, what kind of drop shipping sort of thing, and it would come, and then they said, "Oh no, it's not coming by Amazon. It's actually coming another way," and I'm like, "Well, if it's not coming by Amazon, like it's only people that are shipping it today are Amazon, so no, I'm only delivering it personally because I live locally," and I'm like, whatever, man, just I think it was they'd ordered it, they were getting it delivered to theirs, and then they were kind of obviously just going to bring it to me. They stayed like literally 15 minutes down the road. And to the guy's word, man, he turned up at my door. He turned up at 7:15, probably the latest delivery I've ever had. So 7:15 at night, finally it showed up.
That's a
So
personal touch there, isn't it?
that's what I'm talking about, mate. There's positive feedback and then there's positive feedback, mate. So, but what made it even funnier is that literally 10 minutes after he showed up, Royal Mail turned up. Mate, honestly, with this, I'd ordered Virtua Cop doing the CEX lottery. They had one copy in stock from their Halifax store. I went, right, they weren't able to send me any pictures of it, so it was a total leap of faith. And it is the most minty fresh copy you've ever seen in your life, man. So, well chuffed with that.
What a result, mate. Especially
So,
with Royal Mail saying, you're just saying that's the latest delivery I've ever had, and the Royal Mail saying, well, hold my beer. We
well,
can go later.
mate, when the door went and I seen the guy standing in the Royal Mail jacket, I said to him, "Have you slept in or something?" I just laughed. It's like, mate, you're like 12 hours late to start your shift. It's 7 o'clock at night. So, aye, mate. So it was a kind of double Sega delivery the other night there whenever it arrived. So I've kind of had a play about with it as a view. Obviously, as I said on the last show, it's a Christmas gift from my wife, so I've had very limited hands-on whenever she was out, and I had a wee kind of play about with it, and then it's all been packaged back up in its box. So still played plenty of it and handled it enough to have made a very informed opinion of it. So that is what we thought we'd do, is kind of just put this impromptu show together.
Absolutely. And yes, for anyone who hasn't cottoned on yet, yes, I did buckle. I did end up getting one. It was a case of a few things. I think we talked me into it on the show. I actually pre-ordered it afterwards. I had a very expensive wedding the week after, and thought, oh, I've spent a little bit too much there. I'm going to have to cancel it. And when we re-edited the show and uploaded it, caught that. I caught a few reviews of it, a few friends sharing theirs on Twitter, and pre-ordered it again. I'll pay the rest off next month. It's I had to have it, and I think the discussion, mate, is it really worthwhile? And I think I think the expressions on our face tell a story, but I think it's a bit more to that there. But I thought we'd probably just go through the things we like, the things we don't like so much, and maybe just round it off with our final game, our favourite game, and our final verdict.
Sounds good, mate. Sounds good.
Yeah. So what do you love about it, mate? Let's start with you. And what do you like the most about it now that you've had your hands on it?
What kind of came to mind first whenever I took it out of the box was actually the weight of it. I wasn't expecting it to have quite. I haven't handled the Mini One, so this is the kind of first mini console I've actually bought. So um, to actually get it out, it's quite a weighty wee thing. The build quality, it literally is, for all intents and purposes, a very, very small Mega Drive 2. And you would think that would be quite lightweight, quite flimsy, but actually I was really impressed by just the actual form factor, the weight of it, the sturdiness, the kind of build quality of it. It's quite good as well. Even the wee expansion slot on the bottom, you can clip that off as well, because
Yeah.
obviously you have got the Mega CD attachment that you can buy for it. It's kind of, obviously it's cosmetic, but still a nice wee touch as well. So that was initial thoughts. Even the controller, when I held that, we've spoken on this show in the past about the Retrobit controllers and the issues that we've had with them. The D-pad not being up to scratch, but with this again, holding that, it's an official Sega product, so you would expect that. But again, it just felt like genuine quality in the hands. For it being that long since I've actually mass-produced these things, to package this thing in here, which is literally half the size of the box, is the controller. It was great. I just felt everything about it, build quality wise. I thought this is a quality bit of kit, and then obviously you plug it in, you see the UI. It's smooth, it's responsive. There's no lag in the UI. The artwork's nice and sharp and crisp. Everything about it just kind of screams top end, and that was my initial kind of wow impact of it.
Yeah,
What
I've
about
I've got it
yourself?
as well. Build quality, especially the controller. The whole thing just feels really like a premium product. I've got some things like I've got some of the at games ones, and they're absolutely atrocious. In this field, even the PS Mini, by comparison, doesn't feel as premium as this does. This does feel like a premium bit of kit. The controller as well. So absolutely top notch job there. Beautiful little product.
Aye, I say even right down to the packaging as well. I mean, before mine had got delivered, I kind of looked at a couple of unboxings, and a guy had a measuring tape. These measurements like just under 7 inches across for the box. And I'm sitting there trying to imagine, going, can it be that small? Surely to Christ! And it's like, and whenever the guy handed me the box at the door, I'm like, really? It's like that's it. But no, it's a great little bit of kit. The whole package is very, very premium.
Yeah. What was the first game you went to, mate?
Do you ask?
Yeah, I think it's obvious from the last show. Straight into Final Fight, yeah.
Right into the Final Fight CD, mate. And as I say, the first two games, the first three games I played was Final Fight CD, Virtua Racing, and Night Striker. So that was the first three that I tried on it. The first thing I did was obviously I booted up Final Fight CD, had a play about with it. Now I've got a wee 21-inch gaming monitor upstairs that doubles as my work monitor for working from home. And the first thing I noticed was it looked really pixely, like
Yeah.
really blocky, and I was like, that's. At first, it kind of was quite jarring, like because obviously you've got the image of Final Fight in your head, you've watched videos on YouTube of Final Fight CD, and this didn't correlate with it. And I thought, right, it's a modern display, HDMI, and I remembered CRT filters. So there've been some reviews that I think have been quite scathing, saying that it makes the picture muddy, it makes it too dark. But for me personally, whenever I put that CRT filter on, reloaded back up Final Fight CD, it was glorious. Wasn't muddy, the sharpness was fine. It did dull the picture slightly, it wasn't as bright, but it's not like you're sitting there kind of going, like, I can't see it.
Yeah.
It really did make the world of difference, and I kept it on for all the games that I tried. But I think for Final Fight CD, it just added that layer of smoothness. Just did exactly what a CRT filter is meant to do. The scan lines aren't overly heavy; they're not intrusive. I know some of these OSSCs and whatnot that you can add scan lines, and people do videos and do screenshots, and they can be quite intrusive. They're quite kind of really dark,
Yeah.
like very, very prominent. Whereas these are just nice and subtle. Very similar to the CRT effect on the Final Fight version on Xbox Live Arcade.
Yeah.
Very similar. So that was the first game I went to. With yourself?
Yeah, just before I tell you my first game, but just coming back to the scan lines, I actually had them. I've got them as a positive and also as a negative. So I got them as a
Ooh,
positive because you texted me about the scan lines, and I first time I played it, I brought it into the office, plugged it in, booted it up, put them on. It's like, this looks great. My missus was working because obviously we share the office. Took it upstairs, and it was a miracle moment, because normally someone has got that living room TV, but no one had the living room TV. It's usually either my son's in there playing Spider-Man on the PS4, or my daughter's in there playing Slime Rancher on a Series X. So I went in there, right, hooked the Mega Drive 2 Mini in it. It's a 65-inch 4K TV, and on that, looks pretty horrendous. So I have to admit. So I turned them off. Now, I turned them back on when I was playing another game on here, which is Mansion of Hidden Souls. It's on here as You Mini Mystery Mansion. It's the Mega CD game. It's the prequel to the Sega Saturn one. And it works well there. But yeah, I think at the bigger displays or the higher resolution, I don't think they're quite as effective. But 1080p, 720p, I think they're spot on.
Aye, as I say, the monitor I've got is just a 21-inch 1080p gaming monitor. So we Philips one. So on that, it really did make a difference. I think what you're saying there, obviously, it's the same if you put your Sega Saturn or on a giant screen. We've got a 55-inch 4K in the living room as well, and I've not tried the Mini 2 on that, but I have had the Saturn on it, and even I felt that was too big. And you're just kind of like, you got to remember, like, it's a product of its time. If there was screens that size in the 90s tended to be rear projection.
Yeah.
So they were far softer. So it worked. But if you're having a 4K set already upscaling something which is already upscaling as it is, then you're asking for trouble. So that's a good shout, mate.
That's the thing. I think the reviewers must have been playing it on something like that for them to say it. And for me, it's not a big deal because I'm not going to be playing it on that TV anyway. What's the recent Sonic Origins? It's the latest compilation, isn't it? And I've got that, and I installed it on my Series X, which is in my living room, and played it for a bit, and I uninstalled it and put it on my Series S in my bedroom, which is on a 1080p display. Because even Sonic Origins, which is Series X enhanced, looks it's a hard, like, visual take when you're on a big display like that. So yeah, I think it's very much a case that this is made for a smaller screen. If you're playing it on a 4K telly, then you can't expect it to look minty. But as for the first game I played, mate, I went straight to Space Harrier 2, and I think it's a very unsung extra feature on here, in that you click on Space Harrier 2 and it says, well, do you want to play Space Harrier 2 or do you want to play Space Harrier 1? So there's actually another game on here that's not really mentioned on the box or in the list.
Aye, it's not even mentioned anywhere. It's not on the list of games. It wasn't kind of mentioned whenever the original lists came out. Everyone went to Space Harrier 2, and obviously, as we know, the kind of Mega Drive version, there's kind of performance issues. They're a bit kind of stuttery, whereas now you're getting that really super smooth scaling. So I thought that would be your go-to, mate. I thought that's the one you would go to.
Yeah, big Space Harrier fan. I mean, aside from Alex Kidd, it was the first game I remember playing on my brother's Master System. And straight away, just that game is just Sega to me. It's like when I play Sonic All Stars Racing Transformed, and there's the very last race is called the Race of Ages, and it's got a remixed Space Harrier song, and I play it, and I'm like, it's so good,
it's so beautiful. Brilliant.
Yeah. But yeah, fantastic list of games on there, mate. One thing I like is a few of the little extras on here. So when I started playing Truxton, I know we were talking about our guy Mark from Classic Game Room, who's a big Truxton fan of spaceship shooters.
I'd like to thank the men from eBay for bringing me the Mega Drive Mini
2. Exactly. Oh. But the option to use the arcade soundtrack, that went down very well. But no, it's a fantastic addition. So when I booted up Truxton, I've played it before. I played it on my EverDrive. I've played it before, then emulated. So yeah, it was nice playing it with the arcade soundtrack, just for something different. And there's a few little things like that. Fantasy Star 2 has got some nice little quality of life improvements on there. And I think Thunder Force 4 has an extra fast mode or something that I saw in the options. It's too fast for me anyway. I'm rubbish at that game. But it's, these little things, they put all this little extra care into it. It's fantastic.
Mm. And while on one side we've got the extra care and the attention that they've put into some things, a topic that we had mentioned previously on the 10 Things We Love show was, would they replicate the feature from the Mini 1, where if you change the language, you get the version of the game from that region. You tweeted earlier tonight that they have, and one of the games that we mentioned specifically about that was Streets of Rage 3 / Bare Knuckle 3. And we wondered if they would give you Bare Knuckle 3, at which point we thought that would be an amazing selling point because it's the best way to play Streets of Rage 3 because of the Western kind of censorship and the changes.
Yeah.
What have you found this evening?
Yeah, apparently this was mentioned as well a few days ago, but I missed it. But
well, it's new to you, mate.
It's new to me. So I was playing it today, and because I was actually recording a video of it, and I was recording a video to say how not to play Streets of Rage 3. Go into your English menu, choose Streets of Rage 3, play it. I was going to say how to play Streets of Rage 3. So I had the video and I was going to record it so that, it showed Ash, the character, the boss that was removed from Bare Knuckle 3, and show that he was present. And I got to the end of the warehouse, took out the guy. The guys have all got different names in Bare Knuckle 3, Streets of Rage 3. So I took out Gold with his gun, chucked him off screen, and all of a sudden went to the next stage, which is in the kind of in the at the end of the pier. So, and fought the boss. So it cut out all of stage 1, 2, the whole middle part of stage 1, which accounts for about 60% of the level. You go through the level, then you go to the docks, and you have the big fight over the I can't remember what they're called. The Big Bens, I think they're called. The fat guys that blow the fire at you, and then you go, and then the Shiva keeps ferrying guys across to you on his little boat, and you keep beating them up. I've got it as something I don't like is the fact that they cut that content, because as controversial as it is, I do feel that this console is a preservation piece, and perhaps it should still be in there. Controversial, and it may be upsetting, but me and you have spoken before about rewriting gaming history. It's probably a dangerous precedent to follow, especially if you are a native Japanese speaker. You have been deprived of a segment of the game, and not only that, it's the nature of how they've gone about this. If they genuinely were that concerned, they should have done what they did in the PAL version and removed the character, just not the stage. Because as I say, that's 60% of the level there. So I think that's probably the most disappointing thing about the console at the moment for me. I mean, playing Bare Knuckle 3 is still the best way to play it, especially as you get into the later game. It is just the first stage, but it's a significant part of the first stage. So that's what's concerning about it.
Yeah, I think it's Sega not wanting to get caught up in any kind of controversy. Obviously, we know the way the world is now. You have to be careful what you say. Opinions can obviously offend, content can offend, and you have to be very careful. We have to be very careful as well of obviously what we're saying. But at the same time, the game and the character wasn't created with the sole intent to offend.
Yep.
Whoever made this game at the time, whoever coded that character didn't set out to offend people. So I think it's one of these things where, like you see on Disney Plus now, if you load up an old film, it warns you that there's certain kind of things that are said and certain scenes in it that by today's social standards may not be acceptable, so use discretion. I think something similar to that would have possibly been more advisable. That at the start of the game they simply said, that given the way the things are today, the way society is, the levels of acceptance that we have and the way the world is today, that this content was made at a time when maybe perhaps people weren't as sensitive to things, and that just to kind of use discretion if certain things were going to offend you, and then the gamer, the player, could choose that was the route they wanted to take if they wanted to play it or if they didn't. But it's as a preservation piece. I would like to have seen the game remain intact as it should have been, but I can understand why Sega have done it because they probably don't want to have any kind of any controversy or negativity aimed at them, just because of that particular character. But at the same time, nuking the entire stage rather than just replacing the character does seem very drastic.
It is, mate, and yeah, it's and I completely I know that he will be offensive to some people, and the nature of the fact that he's a boss in a beat 'em up is troubling for various reasons. So, can completely understand why he's a controversial figure and why people might be upset. But as you say, mate, you go on Sky, you go on Disney Plus these days, and they do have those warnings that this does have content that is out of date and will be could be sensitive to. So I think that would have been a better approach. The thing is that whole scene. If you go on to the Xbox 360 version, which you can still buy today, and change the region in that to Japanese, that whole stage is still in there, and that's still a game that you can buy from the Xbox store and play from beginning to end in Japanese language and experience that whole scene. So on one hand, I can understand it from like you said, mate. But on the other hand, it is kind of baffling when you look at what else you have. It's there in various other versions that you can play, and that it's on long plays on YouTube. It's not like that mini bus is a secret or anything. People know he's there. So and you know it's the Japanese audience that's being taken away from. Apart from because if we were talking last episode about who this is for, and maybe we were talking about maybe it'd be relapsed Sega fans, people that have gone, oh wow, Mega Drive, I remember that impulse buy, relive, because it's not all just for your hardcore retro gamers. There's massive casual appeal to it, but they're not going to go in and be like, all right, I'm going to change my settings to Japanese so that I can play the Japanese version of these games. They're just going to go in and play. So yeah, very odd decision, mate. Very odd decision. So it's a bit disappointing, but I can understand why they've done it. I just disagree with the way they have done it.
Aye, and I think that just kind of leaves the English, fan translation of Bare Knuckle 3 that you can play via emulation or as we have on our EverDrives. That still then remains the absolute best way to play Bare
Yeah.
Knuckle 3.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't say that the best way to play Sega's game is on Sega's device unless you're using something from, using an EverDrive card, something from Terrorungian or Crix, which is a shame, Sega. But there we go. But when we talk about the other region differences, I've obviously got it on my things I like list, mate, because there's a ton of stuff in there. Most notably, things like the ooze and stuff. They all have completely different names and pretenses. Ristar or Ristar, as I mentioned in the last episode, and I gave
That's
the
right.
example on my Twitter account.
Yeah, seen that.
In the Japanese version, he's yay, I'm Ristar, the shooting star, as it says on the title screen on the Western one. Who's very serious. Obviously, having the shooting star taken away must have upset him.
Well, that's the thing as well. Like, obviously, I've got the Japanese ROM on my EverDrive, so I've only ever played it with the Smiley version,
Yeah,
and it's actually quite a jarring difference. I mean, it's transformative to the character.
yeah,
I mean, he looks total. I mean, I thought they might have just maybe dropped the smile a wee bit, but he's actually proper angry,
yeah.
and it doesn't quite fit the context of the game.
I mean, because
It,
I obviously grew up with the PAL version. I never owned it until recent years, but I had a friend and I used to borrow it from him ages because I loved that game. And the story is that his world's been overthrown by Greedy and his dad's been kidnapped.
so maybe he's right to be angry then.
So you can understand why he was a bit angry and determined. But when you look at the Japanese version and when you play through the game, and as I've mentioned before, when you get into the snowball fight with the sub boss and then you befriend him at the end, that's kind of the character, how the character is. So it's interesting just having that option, like so many other games on there, where you can just like it was with the Mega Drive Mini One, you can play different versions of the games. I think that's just a really nice touch. Bare Knuckle 3 aside.
Yeah, and I mean, even the UI as well, the fact that you can view the artwork obviously changes as well, and you can view them front on, or else you can flip them very quickly and they just all flip round and they become like spines as well.
Yeah,
But all the cases are all different sizes as well. So, like, if your Mega CD games, like Final Fight CD, is this kind of smaller, dumpy, double
Yeah,
dual case, it's just really, really clever that they've actually thought to not only give you the option to change the game's languages and play different versions of the ROM, but the UI itself to represent the game's physical manifestation on screen. Not only does the artwork change, but they've actually got the case dimensions and everything all spot on as well. So that attention to detail is brilliant.
oh, yeah, it is. It's fantastic. It's a labour of love. And I know I've mentioned Space Harrier already, but some of the games that have been included on here, the new version of Fantasy Zone is fantastic. What I love about the pair of them is that they're two games that are arguably best played on the PC Engine, although the Master System port of Fantasy Zone is fantastic. But the PC Engine got great versions of Space Harrier and Fantasy Zone, and it's nice to see the Mega Drive got Super Fantasy Zone, which is its own completely own thing, and Space Harrier 2, which again is its own thing. But it's nice to have new versions of those games, plus some of those arcade classics. God, what is that train game? I can't remember what it's called now, but that was a little bit of fun. The Puyo Puyo, great fun as
Uh,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, what is it? Devil and Pie was an odd one.
There's certainly some obscure stuff on there as well, which I think some people have used as a wee bit of criticism as well. That I've seen some people on Twitter saying that the best the Mega Drive has to offer is on the Mini One, so why buy this? But I think it's a bit kind of unfair. There's some more obscure stuff on this, but there's also with the Mega CD stuff especially, still some pretty huge mainstream stuff as well, and obviously the main kind of Mega Drive game that again I mentioned on the last show. I haven't tried it, and you sold it to me brilliantly. Kind of the comparison to the way the Saturn does Daytona.
Yeah,
That the visuals and the frame rate take a hit, but the handling's spot on, and that's Virtua Racing. And I had a great time with Mega Drive Virtua Racing. The frame rate didn't feel as low as the kind of 15 that you said. I felt
yeah,
as if it went at a fair pelt. The handling is worlds apart from the Saturn game.
yeah,
It's so good, and you can really tell that that's the Sega version. Obviously, Time Warner did the Saturn game, but I was pretty bad. I put a video on Twitter. I recorded a video of it, and a couple of times off track and ran into the back of a couple of cars and missed a couple of corners. But the sensation of speed is absolutely brilliant on Virtua Racing on the Mega Drive, and I had a ton of fun with it. Again, looked great with the CRT filter and zipped along at a great pace. I had a lot of fun.
yeah. There's another one that I think works better with the CRT filter. Another one that I played on my 4K telly. I was like, no, can't play that here. But the draw distance really got to me on that display more than any other. Um, but playing it back on a normal 22-inch display, much better. And yeah, it's I've got I think I've got every version aside from the Switch version, and I've still got a very special place in my heart for the Mega Drive version. It's an absolute marvel, mate. And yeah, like you say, the handling is spot on. I do think it is the Mega Drive's version of Daytona, where the visually obviously massive cutbacks from the arcade original, but the spirit and the handling is there and spot on.
And for a Mega Drive game, it's a bloody good looking game.
Yeah,
I can imagine that at the time that came out, that must have had a hell of an impact to see that game running on the Mega Drive. Because even me looking at it, I've been going through the EverDrive and played a lot of the kind of Mega Drive classics as well. And the Mega Drive has its own visual style, as does the SNES. But to actually see that and go, hold on, okay, it's got the additional kind of chip on the cartridge to help
mm.
the Mega Drive do it. But even at that, this was a Mega Drive game, and it was doing that. Now, back then, that must have been mind blowing.
Yeah, and it was offset by the price of the cartridge at the time, which is
Uh,
was God, what was it? I think it was 70 quid. So only a tenner more than like say Street Fighter 2, but in America it was $100. So um, yeah, you obviously that SVP chip wasn't cheap, but yeah, you compare Virtua Racing to say Star Fox, which I'm a bigger fan of Star Fox or Star Wing as I knew it before. yeah, you look at the raw polygons that they're pushing, and Starwing uses Mode 7 a lot in the SNES, so a lot of scrolling backgrounds and stuff. Whereas, yeah, the raw polygons and virtual racing is just absolutely phenomenal for a game that released just a year later. Unbelievable. So, superb port, mate. Unbelievable. Any other highlights that you've got?
Um, what do you think? No, it was just again Final Fight CD, virtual racing, form factor, build quality, UI. That was the things that all struck me.
Yeah, I think the only other things that, yeah, Mystery Mansion I've got on here because I haven't got that on Mega CD. Mega CD games aren't cheap, and yeah, that was one that I've wanted. I've got the Japanese version of the Saturn game. I'll probably play the English ROM of that on the Venria, but it's nice to have the superior first game on the Mega Drive Mini, especially given that that's another pricey one. And talking of pricey Mega CD games, Night Striker, and I know it's a little bit pixelated, especially compared to other ports, but God, I love that game. I've already been wanting to play it for some time. Got it finally on the Mega Drive 2 Mini, and as I texted you last night, mate, that was the first game that I actually played from start to finish.
Aye, you finished it, mate. That was it. I mean, that's what I said to you before we started recording. Is that I had a quick kind of shot on Night Striker as well, and that was one that jumped out at me when the Mini 2's list came out, and then after we'd obviously recorded a show, you messaged me and said it came out on the Saturn in Japan.
Yeah,
So I went straight on, put it on the Fenrir, and it's a brilliant port. The super scale and stuff on it is nigh on arcade perfect on the Saturn as you would expect. So that's where I had first experienced it. So going to the Mega CD version on the Mini 2, I did find it a little jarring visibly or visually, but it still runs at a good pace. The playability is still there. The controls are responsive. You know, all the kind of the great kind of aspects that we spoke about with Night Striker before, that kind of neon cyberpunk style setting, you know, everything about that, the music, all that still stands on the Mega CD version. So if you've not got access to the Saturn version at all, then and you've got a Mini 2, yeah, it's a lesser version, but it's still a great experience. It's just that kind of initial kind of visual. Your eyes need to kind of adjust a wee bit. But
sit back a bit.
aye,
Smaller display. Sit back a little bit. Otherwise, yeah, you'll just be seeing pixels. But yeah, it takes a while to get used to it, but the playability is there, mate. It's a phenomenal game. Would have loved to see something like a few more superscalers like Thunderblade. Now we've got the Space Harriers. We've got Afterburner 2 on there, which I do love the Mega Drive version of that. It always was a quality port. So yeah, it would have been nice to get a decent version of Thunderblade. But yeah, that's another highlight for me, mate. It's just a bloody brilliant bit of kit. Sonic CD I've got on here as well.
yes.
Did you know that if you play it in default English if you play it in English with the Japanese soundtrack, the game plays at 50 hertz?
Does it?
Yeah, that's a weird little Easter egg in there. So if you play it in English with the Japanese soundtrack, it plays like a PAL game. If you choose the American soundtrack, it plays at 60 hertz. And of course, if you play in Japanese with the Japanese soundtrack, it plays at a full on 60 hertz with the original sound. So
Which is the way I would play it. That's the way I would play it. You know, just for Toot Toot Sonic Warrior.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
You've got all three versions of the game there. So again, you know, who's going to play it at PAL really? I've got the PAL version. Stick it on now and again. If you've got the nostalgia for it, that's a fantastic extra. So it's just nice, just film completeness to have those three versions. So just lovely little Easter eggs like that, mate. Really, really elevate the product.
I mean, I've got Sonic CD on iOS, which is a Christian Whitehead version.
Yeah.
And I bought them. That Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, I got those when they were premium apps. They've now went kind of free to play, yeah. Free to play, and you get ads in them. You can. It does. There's not a store purchases option anymore, but it does recognise that you have paid for it and removes them. But you can hook a Bluetooth controller up and you can use touchscreen controls. But again, you know, having Sonic CD with an actual SEGA controller Sega console,
Yeah.
you know, and having access to the Japanese version and the Western versions, as you say. I mean, I've just kind of took it out of the box. So just if anybody's watching and wants to kind of get an idea of size, it's a cracking little bit of kit. I mean, I've got, for comparison purposes, I do have my Mega Drive 1. So there's what we're talking about, folks. It's tiny. So, but again, it's a sturdy wee bit of kit. I love the fact that the cartridge slot opens.
Yeah, I know, it's brilliant.
So good. So there you go, folks. I said the last show I wanted a tiny, tiny wee one. So there we go. That's it.
Yeah, it's funny thinking back, mate, because I remember in 2000, maybe 2003. I'd never played Sonic CD apart from a demo of the PC version, which didn't have any music because all the music's Red Book audio, so the download was only had the past music. And then Sonic Gems collection came out, and that was the only way I had to play it forever. Fast forward now, and it's on Sonic Origins, it's on Xbox 360, it's on Steam, it's now on this Mega Drive Mini. So it's just, there's so many ways to play it. But I've got to be honest, I think the Mega Drive Mini version is probably the best way to experience it. I know there's a lot of fans about the Christian Whitehead version. There's bits I'm not a fan of. The 60 frames per second special stages make things a little bit more tricky, I think, just because everything's that much faster. Obviously, you don't have Toot Toot for Sonic Warrior. You've got the instrumental in there because of the rights issue. So, little niggles, but the way to try it, the purest way to play it, I think, is on this Mega Drive 2 Mini, so it's fantastic.
Nah, brilliant, mate. Great stuff.
Anything that you didn't like?
That I've not been allowed to play it until Christmas. To be brutally honest, mate, I literally had I got 45 minutes with it, and I made the most of it. I recorded some videos for the Twitter feed, had a play about with the UI, went into a few games that I could obviously that had kind of caught my eye that I wanted to try. So that's the kind of biggest thing with me that I need to wait to. I've tried to lay on the, can I just get it just now? No, it's been held hostage. I was lucky I was allowed to get it to show off on the pod, mate. But in terms of the actual hardware itself, I don't have. I think for me, I don't, as everybody knows who watches the show, but the Saturns where I started my journey with Sega, plus the arcades just before that with Virtua Fighter and Daytona and stuff like that. So, I don't have a history with the Mega Drive from the day. Again, you gave me the Mega Drive 1 here, which I've got, and I've got my other drive, which has allowed me to kind of go back and revisit the games that I missed out on. So I don't have that kind of depth of knowledge that you have. You've got these wee quirks, these little kind of knowledge bites that you can kind of tune into. You notice, it's like daft things that I notice on the Saturn. Like I noticed the Celica being different on the retail version compared to the bootleg sampler version. That was jarring to me. It's just wee things like that. I think that you're kind of more in tune with these little kind of nuances. So negativity wise, I don't really have anything that jumps out at me.
No, I don't have much at all, really. I mean, we've mentioned the Bare Knuckle 3 content, which is a pain, but there we go. Bare Knuckle 3 is probably still the best way to play it. No Snatcher, I think we mentioned the games that we probably should have been on there in the previous episode. But there's one. Do you know what? Bear with me 1 second. I will be back. Okay. Let me fiddle about on here. So, one little niggle I had was the design, and it's a lovely bit of kit.
Yeah.
So I do have an actual Mega Drive 2, but the thing with we talk about attention to detail. I know it's a little bit disappointing that you've got the switch on here, which is just what the Japanese version had. All they've done is recolor the buttons. What it doesn't have is the pressy button, clicky button there,
right.
And the power grill, which has the LED in it. And that LED is what shows you when the power's on, which is great for that Mega Drive 2 because I got that Mega Drive 2 in a junk bundle when it didn't work. So when that red LED came on, I knew I'd fixed it. And it was the only other thing that I've got in here. I know I've mentioned the scan lines at 4K, etc. But turning it on, I didn't know which way the switch had to go. I instinctively thought left to right to turn it on. And every time I did that, it said goodbye. um, so I messed around. I tried a few different USB cables, and I was thinking of sending it back as faulty. And then finally, I clicked right to left and left it, thinking I turned it off, and all of a sudden it booted up. And it took a little while. And I think that's one thing I've got, is that it was a little bit laggy to start off with. When you boot it up, it does take a good few seconds to come on, which I think is the longest that I've got out of all the mini consoles. And the only other thing, mate, is that it's only got one controller. Um, I would have loved to have it in the living room. If I had another controller, I could have coerced the family into playing a bit of it with me. But as things stand, um, yeah, just the one controller. I did try plugging my Retrobit Bluetooth controller into it via USB, but it wasn't having none of that. So I might have to buy another controller. They're not very expensive at the moment. They're only about 13 quid, but still it's an extra expense.
Aye, especially given the fact that it's already more expensive than the Mini One was,
Yeah.
and you did get two controllers with it. So, whether I don't think the addition of it being a 6 button controller adds an insane amount to the cost. I don't think it would be
No.
astronomical. So, yeah, I think given the fact that you've got so many great two-player games, especially the kind of Streets of Rage games, is that's a game that I've played with my niece before. Streets of Rage 2. Her and I almost finished that, and she was only 8 at the time, and she had a ball playing that. It was on the Mega Drive, the actual Mega Drive. So, yeah, as a product, as we said, that will be aimed, possibly at kind of Sega fans or lapsed Sega fans that have grown up, moved on, had families, and they see this and they see a game they've enjoyed. They want to enjoy it with their kids, pass on that experience. Out the box, you can't do that. So, yeah, I think an extra controller would have been nice.
It would have been, mate. It's as I say, they're not too expensive. I can kind of see why you've got a lot of extra content on here. That comment from in the review you mentioned about the best being on the Mega Drive Mini One. There's a few on here that I would say are probably better than some of the games that we've got on there. I mean, games like Thunder Force 4 and Alien Soldier. Rise Star is one of the best games on the system, I think. Shining Force 2. It's just there's so much quality on here. So I think you're getting at least the 40 quality games that you had on the Mega Drive Mini One, just all completely different with the Mega CD games and with the bonus content. I think it's a brilliant piece of kit, mate. So let's round this off then. So favourite game? I don't think there's going to be any surprises in guessing what yours is there?
Final Fight CD. Although Virtua Racing is very close to being up there, I was really, really blown away by how good that was. But yeah, whenever they announced the lineup, Final Fight CD came up. I messaged you and I went, Final Fight CD. It's got to be Final Fight CD for me, mate.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, mate. And as for me, again, probably no surprises. Space Harrier 2 and yeah, why Space Harrier 2? I generally mean click on Space Harrier 2 and go straight to Space Harrier 1. Absolutely fantastic port. You can tell that it's been done with Mega Drive hardware, or at least with the restraints of the Mega Drive hardware. A bit of sprite flicker, but it's night and day with the Master System version. Looks better than the PC Engine version. Looks almost as good as the 32X version. It's fantastic. It plays phenomenally well. I was just absolutely blown away. I was grinning from ear to ear playing that. So that's the highlight of the system for me. That was what tipped me over to buying it again. Was when I saw that was on there. I saw Space Harrier and just like, I've got to have this. I've got to have it. So yeah.
We sold it to ourselves, mate. We spent an hour and 45 minutes just one big advert selling it to ourselves. So,
and possibly to a few others. So, final verdict, mate. Is this something that you'd recommend any Sega fan?
Yes, I would. And I know, Sega channel and the Sega fans, and they're going to say that. But I think when you weigh up the build quality of the hardware, the build quality of the controller, the games that you get, the performance of them, there's not any perceivable lag for the controls that I certainly felt anyway. HDMI output, scan lines, CRT filter as they call it, everything about it in terms of for what you get for your money, for what it would cost to acquire those games and this hardware today, in the way the current climate is, it's a no-brainer for 105 quid.
Yeah, I think so. The little niggles that we've got on there, small fry. I mean, as you say, mate, people will think that we're both going to be Sega biased and say, oh, yeah, absolutely biased. But this is something that we have both personally felt that we both wanted a lot. And we both have EverDrives and access to pretty much all of the library on the system. I've got Mega Drive, Mega CD, and I've got a number of the games that are on here, like Sonic CD, etc. And even then, this is worth it for me. If you've got an OD, if you've got a Mega SD, maybe it's a harder sell. But even then, I think there's enough on here. It remains to be seen whether stuff like the Space Harrier port can even come onto the, if that leaks, is that actually going to be compatible with the Mega Drive? Whether that's use some sort of secret source sprite scaling that can only be done on that. Well, that's on the Mega Drive hardware, Mega Drive Mini hardware, and can't be done natively on a Mega Drive. It's just a lovely little extra. So all these little odds and sods, the changes that they've made to things like Thunder Force 4 and Truxton, and definitely worth picking this up. It's a lovely bit of kit, and you've got everything on there from arcade classics like Afterburner to absolute epics like Soleil and Shining Force 2. So you can pack it up in your suitcase when you go away. It's small enough. If you've got if you're staying away for work, plug it into your hotel telly. You can either play it for 5 minutes or you can play it for hours and hours and hours into the night. It's superb. 100%. Anyone that's a Sega fan needs to pick this up.
It will be coming to Lanzarote the next time we go, mate.
And on that, mate, I think we'll close this episode down. And so if you've enjoyed this, please let us know. Leave a comment in the section below. I suppose we're on YouTube now, so like, subscribe and all that sort of stuff. Reach out to us on Twitter. You can catch me at Swooper_D. You can catch James at the Segaholic. You can catch us both at Sega Guys. But until next time, see you on the Sega side.
Sega!